Hi everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Shelly with Art for My Table, and today I'm showing you how to prepare dried beans. Beans are an excellent staple to have in your house. They're loaded with protein, B vitamins, and fiber, along with so many other nutrients. They also can be used in so many different recipes, which we'll talk a little bit more about towards the end of the video. My favorite thing about them, they're cheap and filling, and when you have 4 growing kids, cheap and filling is excellent. Plus, I don't feel too bad because they are healthy. I'm going to be covering 3 different ways to cook your beans today. The pressure cooker, the slow cooker, and the stovetop. Before we can cook our beans, we need to prepare them. So the first step is to rinse the beans. Simply put them in a colander and rinse them under cold water. This is a good time to just move the beans around and make sure there isn't any stones stuck in there or extra debris. You want to rinse it for a good 2 to 3 minutes until the water is running clear. The second step is to soak the beans. Now this step is optional, but I like to think of it as a best practice. The reason you want to soak your beans is to help get rid of some of the complex sugars that are in beans that causes some of the digestive issues that beans can cause. So by allowing them to soak, the water will absorb some of those complex sugars. The second reason is simply that the beans will cook faster once you get to that step. There's 2 methods of soaking. There's a traditional soak and a quick soak. The traditional soak will take 12 hours or overnight. And to do that, you simply take your beans and pour them into a pan. And then we want to fill the pan up with water. And you want the water to be about 2 inches or so above the beans. The beans are going to expand, so you want to make sure there's plenty of water in your pan. Then you simply can cover this and set it aside until the next morning. The second method is a quick soak. You'll do the same thing. Place the beans in the pan, cover them with water, and then bring them to your stove and boil them. We'll just boil them for 10 minutes, and then we're going to put the cover on and let them sit off of the heat for about an hour. At that point, your beans are ready to cook. After soaking, the beans will be about double in size. This is just a dried bean that hasn't been soaked, and then this one was soaked overnight, so you can see how much larger that one is. Our first method of cooking is the pressure cooker. Now, this is one of my favorite things to use my Instant Pot for. I love cooking dried beans in the Instant Pot. It's quick, it's easy, they come out perfect every single time. The amount of time that you cook them is going to depend on the variety of the bean that you're using, how much you have in there, and whether or not you've soaked it. So for today, I'm demonstrating black beans, and I started with 1 cup of dried beans. I did soak those overnight. 1 cup is going to be about equivalent to 1 can once it's finished because they expand. So we'll just dump our beans into the Instant Pot. And now we want to fill that with about 6 cups of water. After you have your water in there, you're just going to put your Instant Pot or pressure cooker lid on. Make sure the vent is in the sealed position. And we're going to cook this on high pressure for 6 minutes. Because I soaked the beans, black beans will only take 6 to 8 minutes in the pressure cooker. If I did not soak the beans, then they would take more like 25 minutes. A couple of tips for you when you're cooking beans in your pressure cooker. Make sure that it is never filled more than half full. And another tip is that you want to let the beans naturally release. If you're in a bit of a hurry, you can do a manual release, but I would recommend you let them do natural release for at least 10 to 15 minutes. starchier foods are going to need that extra natural release time. The second method we're going to talk about is the slow cooker. So after you have rinsed your beans and soaked them, if you've chosen to do so, place them in the slow cooker. Then you're going to cover the beans with a couple inches of water and just put the lid on and cook them on low for 6 to 8 hours. Just a quick note on slow cooking. If you're going to slow cook kidney beans, then you need to boil them for 10 minutes prior to cooking them in your slow cooker. Kidney beans contain a toxin that can really mess with your digestive system. So making sure you boil it first completely neutralizes that toxin so you won't have anything to worry about. And the last way to cook your beans is on the stovetop. This is also just as easy as the pressure cooker or the slow cooker. To do this, you'll take your rinsed beans and pour those into a Dutch oven or a heavy bottom pan. Again, cover the beans with 2 inches of water. Now you want to bring them up to a boil, and once they reach that boil, let it come down to a gentle simmer. At this point, you're just going to let the beans cook. If you like your beans a little softer, then cook with the lid on. And if you want them to be a little bit more firm, like to add to a salad, then you want to cook with the lid off. After about an hour, you can check for doneness. It can take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours for them to cook on the stovetop. Okay, let's talk about flavoring these beans. I tend to make my beans just plain and flavor them afterwards. For me, I tend to do large amounts, and I will actually package up the extras and freeze them for a future use. So I tend to leave them plain so that I can flavor them according to whatever recipe I'm going to make. Now, that being said, there are some very general flavorings that you could add to any one of these methods to just give it a little more flavor. A couple of onion wedges is great, some garlic cloves, just whole cloves, and a bay leaf. Those, you could put all those in together or just use one of those things, and that will give your beans a little bit of extra flavor. One thing to note is you do not want to add any salt prior to cooking your beans because it will slow down the process and they won't get as soft as they could or as tender. And lastly, I like to reserve some of the cooking liquid to store the beans in. So whether I'm storing them in my refrigerator or if I'm going to package them up and freeze them, that extra liquid will just help to keep them moist and not dry out while they're being stored. Now that you have all these prepared beans, let's talk about all the ways that you can use them. And that is how you prepare dry beans 3 different ways. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to be kept in the loop of future videos. I will see you next time.